going on, guys? Today we're going to take a look at the box here that you may have seen in other videos sitting in the background, and this is from Nismo out of Japan. This is the model number. This is the rear control arms for the R32 GTR. So let's open up and take a look at them. So these are going to be pretty freaking cool. These bushings and everything are brand new, looking really nice. Rubber boot here is fresh. And the Nismo bushings are stiffer over the stock ones. They're still rubber, but they're a little stiffer, so they're supposed to give you more feedback. And paint and everything's really good on them. And here's a look. I've got the one side off already just to compare, so you can see that, like, the bushing around that ball joint, or not the bushing, but the rubber boot around that ball joint is just about shot. And the rubber and the bushings pretty much all dried out and just about had it. See all the cracking in there. And then you can see on the bottom, these things were heavily corroded with rust. Last summer I kind of scraped them all down and repainted it, but just kind of bothered me, so I replaced them. Ordered these from Right Hand Drive Japan. They weren't too expensive. I think they're like $230 for the whole set of left and right for the rear, so pretty affordable. And inside the box comes with this certificate of authenticity, so you know it is a legit set. It's got all your installation instructions and everything, how to do it as well. So I may need a translator because I don't speak Japanese, unfortunately. So let's see how we can do this. So let's see what's involved in getting the factory ones off. Alright, so to go ahead and remove the rear A-arm, you just have to remove the inner bolts and nuts here. So one on each side. And then in order to gain access to the third one, which is down in there, you have to take the drive axle, CV axle out. So we'll do that and pull it out. You have to take out the cotter pin. Let's go ahead and bend that back so we can get access to the 36mm nut on the back of this. Alright, you can go ahead and take this off. There's a rubber seal on the back. That comes off. I'm going to go ahead and spray some penetrating oil in here, help loosen this up. Alright, got a 36mm socket with our big breaker bar. Alright, got the nut off, and then there's a washer in here too. We're going to go ahead and loosen the traction arm bolts and the rear upper control arm bolts. I'm going to go ahead and loosen on the high kiss rear steering, the tie rod end on that. We're going to loosen that, and we're going to pop this out with a ball joint remover, and that's going to allow us to swivel this knuckle out to have the room to manipulate that drive shaft. Alright, and then to remove the inner part of the drive shaft by the diff, you can get 3 bolts at a time. You're going to want to set the e-brake to on so you have something to hold it in place, and then you can go ahead and torque these off, which I've already got them loosened up. And rotate this around. And the other side had a mark on it. This side doesn't, so I'm just gonna wipe that down with a little rubbing alcohol, and I'm just gonna put a mark on this so when I put it back together, I'll put it back together in the same spot. Just take those last two bolts out and then this will be free. Alright, we'll take the cotter pin off on this tie rod end. So here we go, that drive shaft is out. Kind of a pain, but not too bad. All right, now we can move to the inner ball joint on this lower A-arm now that we've got that drive shaft out of the way, because there was no access to this before. So penetrating oil on that, we'll work the cotter pin out. Alright, and you've got a 22 millimeter socket to break this ball joint out of here. Alright, and I've got just the control arm and the traction arm just kind of sitting in position with the bolt through it, just to kind of hold as I'm loosening everything. So we go ahead and take off the inner A-arm bolt hardware. Go ahead and take that ball joint out. And there we go, it's out. Doesn't look too bad for almost 30 years old. Alright, and something to consider when you're working with these Nismo A-arms is when you go to reassemble them, they don't come with the ball joint cap or the seat. And so I've got one unboxed here so you can kind of see that that thing's gonna slip into the knuckle. So I didn't realize that, and I threw away the ones that were on my factory ones, so I had to order these, and I'll put a link in the description down below. You can order them from Japan for like $5 a piece, or you can get them off Amazon. They're pretty universal. They work on a bunch of different Infinities. They work on the R32 GTR. They work on the 300ZX, so it's a universal part, and that is the part number. As far as how that goes into the knuckle, you can't put it on there without it, because that fits the whole assembly perfectly flush, just like that. Alright, I got the bearings cleaned up on both sides so that ball joint will seat right in there perfectly for the ball joint. Alright, and you can see this ball joint here bolted to the chassis of the vehicle with that cap over the top of it. Compresses this down. See how it creates that seal there to keep the water from getting in. Kind of cool. And it can be replaced, of course. You can take the snap ring off there and press it out from the bottom if you need to replace it. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and assemble the knuckle with the A-arm, and I'm going to do it off the car. So we're going to go ahead and put our ball joint cap over that. We're going to slip it in here. We're going to put our nut and our washer over that. Get that tightened down to spec. Alright, I'm going to torque this down to spec. I'm going to go 58 foot-pounds, which is within specs of the factory service manual. Alright, we can go ahead and put our cotter pin in. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and install the drive shaft in now that I've got this all tightened down and cinched down. Go ahead and get the washer, put the axle nut in there just kind of loosely to kind of hold it into position. And that's all done there, so that's ready for assembly. And I've also went ahead and put the WP grease on this, on the polyurethane bushings all the way around for the control arm, the traction arm, and the coilover. So let's go ahead and put it back on the car. Alright, let's go ahead and connect the traction arm and the control arm. This is 65 foot-pounds. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and connect the high kiss rear steering tie rod in to the ball joint on the knuckle and secure it down. Put our cotter pin in. Just like that, and make sure you don't leave your ball joint crooked. It can cause it to prematurely wear and get damaged. Make sure you straighten it out flat just like that so it's perfectly parallel. Alright, let's go ahead and get this axle nut tightened down. Alright, that's tight enough for now. Once we get the wheel on, we can lightly set the tire onto the ground and finish torquing it down through the wheel all the way up to, I think it's like 205 foot-pounds. Alright, here comes the Öhlins. at the e-brakes reassembled, it should look something like that. So you got your springs on the top, you got your little keeper plate, and then there's also another piece that goes across down in here that kind of pushes each one of those things out. And there's a spring on the opposite side from the spring, the main spring lever. So you have a spring kind of on each side, and then you've got your fasteners that hold the pads on either side, and your adjustment spring down below, or your adjustment gear with a connecting spring. So pretty simple. I'm going to throw the brake back on, and this side is done. Alright, we can go ahead and put our little, oh, it's like a sound dampening little washer that goes over that between this and the outer cap. So put that on, and then we can put our cotter pin in. Alright, we can go ahead and torque that axle nut down. The service manual says 204 foot-pounds. So my wrench only goes to 150, so I'm going to go to 150 and then go beyond. That's good there. Alright, now we can slip the big cotter pin in here. Alright, should look something like that. Well, that's it for today's video, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe down below. And let me have some comments. Let me know what you thought. See you next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.